Good morning. Thank you for joining our session on transition planning. I'm Kim Buckman. I'm the Director of Support Coordination for County Connections. And just throwing this out there that none of us are in the world, in the career of presenting, so bear with us. We are all in the field of case management. And Molly and I have done a lot of presentations over the years, but this is our first one in a couple years, so you're welcome. You get to be our guinea pigs. So we wanted to talk today about transition planning and that it's not the end. While it may be the end of their school career, that we know that that's the beginning of their future, the beginning of new goals, beginning of employment or other options for individuals. And so we're going to look at that today. We're going to talk about how case management can support you guys as during your transition planning. And so with me today is Molly Ekman and Whitney Schmo, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about them and what they do, and then we'll get started.
Hello, my name is Molly Ekman. I am the Assistant Director at our Hannibal Satellite Office. So our satellite office is a regional office, and we work under the umbrella of Department of Mental Health, the Division of Developmental Disabilities. So welcome and thanks for coming.
Hi, my name is Whitney Schmo. I am the Intake and Assessment Lead at the Hannibal Satellite Office for Department of Mental Health.
All right. So as our presentation team gathered to think about what do we want to talk to you all about today, where are we going to go with this presentation? As Kim mentioned, we haven't done this in quite some time. So to get us rolling, we just really reflected on where we've been in our journey since high school, and where our professions have grown and made us go. So we thought about where we started in the field of supporting individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and the promotions and the advancements that we've had, and the farther what we thought was a disconnect from really being forward-facing to that person, but instead it really just gave us a larger approach to support more people. So we thought about the skills that we have and the things that we have to do to really support real lives all across the life stages from birth to death, supporting people and making those changes each and every day in individual lives just like you guys. So we thought about the role of case management and supporting individuals with intellectual and developmental diagnoses and the interconnects that has with not only supporting that person, but also supporting their family. And not just supporting their family and that person, but the interconnects that this has with maybe the school systems or different provider agencies they work in, the different communities that they live in. Maybe that's even supporting individuals who live in nursing homes. So we work with a different array of people, different stages, different needs, and then not only are we doing just different communities and different people, but we're navigating the interconnects of completing Medicaid applications and helping people have safe housing, that inclusive education that we all strive for, different healthy living aspects, and the list just goes on and on and on, and you guys are going to hear a whole lot more about that. So we realized that as case managers, our jobs are oftentimes just to stay calm, right, in the midst of chaos, to just be that steady pace for the individuals and the families as they navigate different stressors that come along with life. Trying to connect them to as many resources as we can and get them as many services that they can, all to support their vision and their desires of what they have mapped out for themselves. So we do this, of course, just also keeping up with that good old state documentation. So I think if we're experts in anything, it's probably getting all the documentation in order. So like these legendary cowboys that we're getting ready to show you, we as case managers felt like, yeah, we can relate. We work through the heat of the moment anyways, and we wrangle things like barriers to keep individuals on their course for what they are planning for themselves. And we take the ride of the path less followed, supporting the different population. all to get and to support those journeys, the journey of a good life. So we've got a fun video to show you.
The first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy.
Anybody can herd cattle. Holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs, well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning, right here, and if you look at his face, it's just ripped to shreds, you know?
You see the movies, you hear the stories, I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do.
I wouldn't do nothing else.
It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like it in the world.
EDS, managing the complexities of the digital economy.
So as educators in the school system, do you guys feel a little bit like that yourselves? Like you're really just trying to navigate so many lives on their path towards what they want, and doing it while staying calm with all of the different directions that people are pulling you and the needs that they have. So you see, as case managers supporting the lives of individuals of all ages, we have experience supporting students within that transition age. But we aren't the experts on this topic. We aren't the ones that lead that transition process. And in fact, when people ask us, like, what are you the experts in? Well, nothing. We just know a little bit about a whole lot of things. We just spend a lot of time on the phone trying to figure out who can help and where can they help and how can they help. We do our best to just get involved with communities and reach out and get a feel for what communities have and then how we can support the person through what they're going through. So to increase our awareness of what you guys do and to increase your awareness of what the others around you do, what we wanted to do was just start with a little activity, because we want to hear from you of what's working well within your transitions. And I know you guys are on day 2 of conference, I get it, but we want to know what's working well within your transitions and what's not working well. And so by having that conversation, what we're hoping that we're going to do is we're going to figure out how could we better support you and how could you better support us and how can we, in the end goal, really just support the person. So we're going to give you about 10 to 15 minutes, and we've got a trajectory. And so what you're going to see is it's similar to this. So that vision at hand, that is just a successful transition. So we want you to think about what is going well within your school districts to help people transition. What are the strengths that you have? What opportunities has your school system brought up that has worked really well for your students? But then also addressing the bad, right? A little bit of the negative with what's not working well on that bottom side of the tradition or of the trajectory. What barriers do you face? What hurdles are you jumping over? What are the hardships? Where are the roadblocks? And having this and doing this, that's going to help us prepare for, okay, where is this conversation and this presentation today going to lead? How can we support your efforts?
Yeah, So at your tables, or each of you got one of these trajectories when you came in, and those things Molly was just talking about, they go on the left side. Over here on the trajectory, you've got questions that kind of prompt that. On the right-hand side is where we want to know what's working, what's not working aside. What's your vision for a successful transition? What ideally should happen, would happen, can happen to make transition successful? And then on the bottom are the things that you want to avoid, that you don't want to happen. And then like Molly said, over on this left-hand side is where you're going to put those what's working well to push you towards what you want to achieve. And then on the bottom, what's not working that's kind of pushing you towards those things you want to avoid. So we'd encourage you to kind of get in groups, scoot your chairs, hop up and move around a little bit, get with a group of about 4 or 5 people, and take some time and work through this, and then we'll kind of get back together and go from there. So. Okay. let's bring it back to the whole room. If you want to get back to your seat, you can, or if you want to stay where you're at, that's fine too. We have Molly and Whitney over here going to do a little graphic facilitation for us as we go through this and you guys share some things out. They're gonna do their best. You definitely don't want me over there because art was not my strength. So just because I'm that kind of person, I like to start with what we don't want. Right? Sometimes that's easier to figure out and to know you know what you don't want based on experiences that you've had. Sometimes we don't always know what we do want. So let's start with what we don't want. Who wants to share? Who came up with something that they don't want? So that bottom hand side of your trajectory, the left hand side, the vision for what you don't want for transition planning. And I have a few participation prizes, so they're really fun little squishies. So who'd like to share? And I'll bring you the microphone so that you can share it out. All right, Lisa, yes, thank you. I was getting ready to call you out because you're the only face in the room I know.
I would say we wouldn't want confusion of roles. We don't want the parents to think that the school is taking 100% responsibility for having things set up and ready to go. And we want to make sure that everyone knows what they're expected to do.
Oh, you get a star. Gold star for you, Lisa. Good job. Absolutely, right? That's such a common thing that we have confusion on who's going to do what and what people's responsibilities are. Awesome. Who else? Nope.
Thanks. So we were talking about like a non-individualized plan. So, maybe they haven't had a lot of exposure to different types of jobs. So I see a lot of kids coming out and saying, like, I either want to work at a grocery store or with animals, because those are the two experiences that they had in high school. And that's maybe a great place to start, but it doesn't have to be the end point in figuring out, what does the child actually want?
I love that, right? How many of you here are doing exactly what you thought you were going to do when you were a kid? Some of you probably are, right? I am not. I thought I was going to be a nurse, but can't handle that. Too queasy for that. So we don't always have to stick with those initial plans, right? There's a lot of opportunities. Who else? There was a lot of discussion in this room for no discussion now. Anybody else know what they don't want? How about what you do want? What's successful transition planning look like for you guys? What's going to happen to make it successful? Oh, yeah. My friend who's cold.
Right, always. Having the microphone is weird, but I want to know what my kid's going to do the day they graduate after high school, like next week or that next month. I want to know what are they going to do? What's their plan? Because if I know, then I know that they know. So that passing the baton, I guess, would be that picture, but that's a really good feeling when we've got that.
Perfect. Yeah, you can't leave things left unsaid, right? Because if nobody speaks up and says it, then everybody thinks somebody else knows, but maybe they don't. And having that something concrete to actually have that in your hand and know what that plan is. Anybody else? Oh, right up here. Sorry, I had my back to you and I probably missed you earlier.
We actually have what's called the GOES program, and what seems to work, some of the kids, when they tell us what they're interested in, we kind of find a position where they can go out and work in that environment. And we've even seen some of our kids actually get hired on in those environments. And so that's a plus. And then we've also saw where they helped them get a place to live on their own. So it's so much of a difference when they can do it on their own. Can it? It's not really that big.
Yeah, so having opportunities and connections so that they get lined up with what they need after transition or during that transition process, to have that set up and ready to go when they leave, right? When they leave your doors and walk out for the last time. Anybody else? What do you want to see for success when it comes to transition? Yeah.
I'd like to have area meetings with outside agencies and school personnel so that we can all collaborate together about what is available and how we can support unmet needs.
It's huge. Collaboration, right? Communication. Let's talk. I was talking to someone up here a while ago, and oftentimes the left hand knows what the left hand does, but not the right hand. And we work in our own little silos. So having that collaboration and that communication.
I like to piggyback off of that, not only the agencies, but I really would like to see industry and businesses come to a meeting to talk about what's available for students. I think maybe if the chambers in all of the different cities and districts can have a meeting with probably the SPED coordinator or whatever to talk about what could be done for students and what kind of opportunities they can have, not only apprenticeship programs, but also just shadowing and different things that could come along.
Wow, I love that. Because again, we get so caught up in our eligibility specific world of students with IEPs or students for us with developmental disabilities that we don't often open that door of conversation outside of our field, right? And those are the people that are going to be the employers and they're going to be the community supports and resources. So we have to open that conversation. I love that. Anybody else? Oh, right here.
We had talked about along kind of the same thing, but along with the people involved in the transition, making the student, the parents, the teacher, that there's collaboration there and having realistic goals. And we said sometimes you have to pop that bubble. I know when you have the 8th grader that's 5-0 and 100-0 and he wants to be a lineman, and he doesn't play football currently, hasn't tried out for the football team, you have to kind of not be mean, but be realistic.
And that's okay. We all have to face reality sometimes, right? But maybe we can find interests that lie within that or find out why he truly is interested in that and build upon that and lead him to something else that he enjoys. Anybody else? So thinking about those things, the collaboration, the communication, the partnerships, and the goal setting, and all of those things that you mentioned for success, what are some things that are working really well? You mentioned like the apprenticeship programs and things in your community. What are some other things that are working really well when it comes to transition? Oh, we got lots of work to do then, right? Are there things that are happening that aren't working well? Oh.
I'll say something. I don't really want the microphone, but hello. Okay, so we are from the Springfield area, so we have OTC right out our back door. So a lot of our students get bused over there in the morning and work on welding, masonry, culinary, whatever that is, and they're very successful there. And then they get their certificate and move on to a job. So that's like our success stories.
Sorry, so OTC is like a trade school that you have partnered with. Awesome, I love that. You had something else back here?
I was just going to say our pre-ETS person.
Pre-ETS, yeah, pre-ETS. I don't know if all of you are familiar with that. Hopefully you are. There's pre-ETS representatives around the state, and hopefully they're coming to your schools and partnering with you to build those relationships prior to those students being eligible for voc rehab. Anything else? Oh.
At our school, when I need to pull our students out of the regular classes to meet with pre-ETS or to go on these job shadowing trips, I have full support from the classroom teachers, and I think that's a lot to have them on board with what our students need.
Goes back to that collaboration piece, right? Got to have that from all parties to be successful. Anybody else have anything they want to share? So for us, those are pretty similar things. Then we sat down and we brainstormed and we talked about what is our vision, When we see transition from our standpoint, what do we not want to see with transition happening? Those are all very similar things to that. You know, we talked about that collaboration piece. We talked about that confusion of roles. That's a big one a lot of times with the families that we work with schools, with all the outside resources that come to the table sometimes. And there's a lot of confusion, misconceptions, miscommunication. And those are all things that we want to avoid, because ultimately that's going to lead to unsuccessful transition. That's going to lead to somebody walking out of those school doors for the last time, not having that concrete plan or action steps of what they're going to do next. And you know what? Ultimately, they are teenagers, right? Again, I'm not doing what I thought I was going to do. Plans change, things change, there is confusion, and that's okay. And that's one of the things that we have to realize too, and one of the things that's important to us is that dignity of risk, right? That just because they have a label, just because they have a developmental diagnosis, does not mean that they don't have that opportunity to try things and to fail. Because that's just the reality of the world for all teenagers, right? And all of those in that transition stage. So lots of hurdles and barriers and roadblocks sometimes, but there are a lot of things that sounds like hopefully are working well and with collaboration with some of those community partners and things. So thank you for sharing those. So now let's jump into case management, right? Thank you. We're not the experts, so we appreciate you guys sharing from your perspective on transition. But now we want to share a little bit about our perspective on transition from case management and what case management is, how it fits into the role of transition planning. I'm a walker around person, so this is going to be hard with multiple mics and stuff. How it fits into the role of transition planning and how we can use case management, how you can use case management to help you reach that successful transition planning. So I laugh and chuckle every time somebody says, what do you do? Like Molly said earlier, like everything? I don't know. It's really hard to describe and break it down sometimes. But case management, ultimately, the role of case management is to identify the needs of individuals and then to connect them with services, supports, and resources to meet those needs. The Division of Developmental Disabilities, we provide case management specifically to that population of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Like Molly mentioned earlier, we support those individuals from birth to death. So we get to touch those individuals for their entire life. You all have them for a much smaller window, and we recognize that. But that's why we want to be at the table and be a support, so that we not only support them at that current stage that they are in, but we help them to anticipate the needs at the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. So case management also supports individuals across all areas of life. We don't just focus on one element. We are looking at all of the life domains. We support individuals with daily life and employment. So that's, what are they going to do for a meaningful day? Whether that's school, whether that's employment, whether that's some kind of skills training program, volunteering, whatever it may be, we're working to help support them in identifying needs and resources in that area of life. We also work to support them with community living. So where are they going to live? Are they going to continue to live at home? Are they going to move out? Are they going to have a roommate? Can they afford it? Are there accommodations that need to be made so that they can live there independently? It's not just about where you live, though. Community living is also about your community around you and how you access that. So we're supporting and helping identify needs around transportation, support out in the community, and events out in the community. Skipping over health and safety and come back to those. Social and spirituality. Social and spirituality is an area that oftentimes for individuals in our program is lacking a little bit. And so we do a lot of planning around building those reciprocal relationships and helping them develop connections, helping them find out what they're interested in and being able to participate in that. We also help them around citizenship and advocacy. It's not enough to just be in the community. It's important to be a valued member of your community and to be a part of things in groups and organizations, not just be at the table. And so we're helping individuals to ensure that they are able to have their voice heard, that they find their voice and are able to use their voice. And then, of course, the health and safety. In our field, those are the two areas that historically individuals receive a lot of support, right? And why not? It's very critical and important that we make sure individuals are healthy, whether that's their physical well-being or whether that's their mental health, and also to make sure they're safe. You know, that's a big gamut of things like personal safety, public safety, responding to emergencies, financial safety. So we look at all of those areas of life when we're doing case management to make sure that we support the individual as a whole. So how do we do that? We start with planning. Case management, planning is the key to what we do. Planning is an ongoing process with each individual that we work with. We really dive in and learn about the individuals and make sure that we are outlining information to help them be successful in all of those areas. Annually, we develop an individual support plan. So you may, if you've worked with case managers before, have heard about that. It's a little different than your IEP, obviously, but oftentimes the goals we outline in our support plans, we try to help have those reflect similar goals to what you guys are working on at school with them and what their IEP goals are, because we want to provide that consistency. So they're getting it at school, we're helping them outside of school, we're working with the families to help them with those similar goals that you guys are already working on. Advocacy. We provide support as advocates to the individual. Oftentimes the individuals that we work with maybe struggle with navigating those outside resources and supports. So along with advocating the individual, we try to teach them and help them be able to speak for themselves and advocate for themselves. We also work alongside them as a liaison sometimes. So when they're coming to the table with an outside resource, such as a school, helping kind of bridge that gap to make sure individuals on both sides of the table can work towards a common goal and achieve what both of you are intending to achieve. Many times the families that we work with may know what they want for their son or daughter and what their ultimate goals are for them, but they don't know how to articulate that, and they don't know how to share that information out. So a big responsibility of ours is to help prepare them for those conversations and to help guide and facilitate those conversations. They also don't know sometimes what they need to be sharing. They may have information that's really important as to why somebody's struggling in a certain area. And so we can, again, help guide and facilitate those conversations so that all that information gets shared and articulated. We also help individuals and families navigate those systems, like I mentioned. We know that especially for public assistance programs, secondary education, you guys know this better than I do, that's all overwhelming, right? There's a lot of information, a lot of boxes to check, and so we spend a lot of time helping families with those public assistance programs and those application processes for that. So when we identify a need during that planning process, we are working to explore all integrated supports to meet that need. We're not going to focus just on eligibility-specific programs like ours or like vocational rehabilitation or Social Security or Medicaid. We're looking at, first and foremost, the individual's strengths and abilities. What do they have to offer? What to meet that goal that we're working on? Or what skills can we help train and build so that they can ultimately achieve that goal? We're also looking at personal relationships, so building that and enhancing that, whether it's peers, family, friends, neighbors, acquaintances that can turn into a stronger support. We look at community resources, things that are open and available to everybody in the community. So public assistance programs like transportation in your community, the library, whatever those public assistance programs that are open in your communities, we're exploring those as options. Technology is a huge thing right now, right? That's our world that we live in, is technology. And so we are looking to technology first. We're looking to make sure that whether that's a low-tech item that you can go to Sam's or Walmart and buy off the shelf, or a more high-tech adaptive equipment item. We're exploring all of those options to help individuals meet that need that we've identified during the planning process. And then when all else fails and there's still gaps, because sometimes there are, That's when we fill those gaps in with the eligibility-specific supports, such as case management, such as vocational rehabilitation, Medicaid waiver programs to help fund skills training, and other things like that. So, Molly, you're still over there doodling and drawing. You want to go over any of that, or do you want to move on? Because I've shared a big global picture of what case management is and what we do, right? But Molly's going to talk to you a little bit more about that specific transition age, which we're here for, and what our role as case managers are specifically with that.
I'll admit I was having a little too much fun over there to come back and do some more presentation, but here we are. So there are a lot of expectations, as Kim talked about, as they approach graduation from high school, and students are encouraged to think about what they want to do after high school all along the way. So they've been thinking on where they want to go, what they want to do, the goals and visions that they align for themselves. But to inspire students, including students with intellectual and developmental diagnoses, to make those independent decisions, a team approach is really needed. So as you're going to see on this Visio illustration, Visio is one of many tools that we're going to share with you today. And this is about process mapping. It really helps you to line out how to do something, what you're doing, and how you do it. But as you'll see on this Visio map, there seems to be a little disconnect maybe of what we're doing as case managers, what you guys are doing as educators, and what the family is doing. So as you'll see above, students have a vision for themselves, right? But in order to reach that vision, I added a few more things on the board over there. In order to reach that vision, they have to keep up their attendance at school. They have to maintain their grades, and they have to keep whatever vision they are planning to go to at that forefront of their high school experience. So like you guys talked about, those trade schools, getting enrolled in those and doing those, the pre-ETS opportunities that they have for moving forward, that's all part of that. And then as school teachers, you'll see in the second lane, and this is not an inclusive list of what you guys do, I recognize that. Yeah, very small. So you guys support to develop those IEPs to support individuals with intellectual and developmental diagnoses, and making sure that those goals are met. You're helping them to navigate their classes. Or, is this class leading them towards their vision, whatever it is they're choosing to do after high school? And you're connecting them to resources, different scholarships to continue that education post-high school. And then as support coordinators or case managers, we're working over here, and we're working with individuals in their homes and in their communities, trying to get them to volunteer, to look at independent skills training in the home or in the community if that's what they need, to work on pre-employment skills, and the list goes on, which I won't bore you with because you just heard a lot from Kim. So this process map gave us a really good reminder that while all of us are working on the same vision to support that child or that student through the transition, we're really working in silos, right? So wouldn't it be great if students and families and schools and support coordinators could come to the same table to really plan, so that we're not duplicating efforts, or we're expanding on what you guys are doing in the school system out in the community, so we're helping those goals and helping them to attain them? Because after all, we are on the same team, right?
You are gonna slay today. Day before. Sometimes we'd be sad because I think we all need a pep talk. The world needs to stop being boring. Yeah, you. Boring is easy. Everybody can be boring, but you're gooder than that. Life is not a game, people. Life isn't a cereal either. Well, it is a cereal. And if life is a game, aren't we on the same team? I mean, really, right? I'm on your team. Be on my team. This is life, people. You got air coming through your nose. You got heartbeat. That means it's time to do something. A poem. Two roads diverged in the woods, and I took the road less traveled. It hurt, man! Really bad. Rocks, thorns, and glass. My parts broke. Wah! Not cool, Robert Frost. But what if there really were two paths? I want to be in the one that leads to awesome. It's like that dude Journey said, don't stop believing, unless your dream's stupid. Then you should get a better dream. I think that's how it goes. Get a better dream and keep going. Keep going, and keep going. What if Michael Jordan have quit? Well, he did quit. No, he retired. Yeah, that's he retired. But before that, in high school, what if he quit when he didn't make the team? He would have never made Space Jam. And I love Space Jam. What will be your Space Jam? What will you create will make the world awesome? Nothing if you keep sitting there. That's why I'm talking to you today. This is your time. This is my time. It's our time. We can make every day better for each other. If we're all on the same team, let's start acting like it. We got work to do. We can cry about it, or we can dance about it. We were made to be awesome. Let's get out there. I don't know everything. I'm just a kid. But I do know this. Is everybody's due to give the world a reason to dance. So get to it. You've just been pep talked. Create something that will make the world awesome.
So, like Kid President said, oh, well, no. But what if there really were two paths? And he would choose the path less followed. And so that's my question to all of you today. Are you going to choose the path less followed? Because we can continue to work in these silos of services, working on that same goal, but in different lanes. Or we could come together and sit at the same table and really work on those students' plans to make it work not only in their school and in their community, but also their home. So I hope you enjoyed that. I heard some chuckling, which makes me know you guys are certainly educators. You like the kid. I get it.
All right, so you guys will definitely have to bear with me because this is my first time presenting. These are pros, if you couldn't tell. I'm going to be probably behind the podium a little bit. So today I just want to talk to you a little bit about using what you have at each stage. So Kim went through case management services that can be sought at any time for individuals with the intellectual or developmental disabilities and their families. But in addition to case management services, linkage to other services can begin as early as eligibility and intake services. So as I told you earlier, I am the intake and eligibility supervisor for our Hannibal satellite office. So I'm typically the first step when people come in and to initiate services. So I just wanted to address that some of these services can be initiated basically during that process. So we talked about working as a team and having several lanes going. That's what we hope to do as well. So when we focus on using what we have at each stage, opportunities to connect families to additional resources, even outside of Department of Mental Health, can become visible. So the intake planning tool that we provided to you guys has an overview of just some of the support coordination or case management services, as well as some external resources for each stage. So for example, during the infancy stage, support can be provided to families through Missouri First Steps program, WIC, and even your local health department, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are already familiar with. During the early childhood stage, supports such as IMPACT can help with upcoming IEP meetings. And there's also available tools online to assist families with individual options. In the stage of school age, additional supports may come from Healthy Children and Youth Program or the Bureau for Special Health Care Needs. Now, when those individuals reach that early transition stage, you may start exploring additional resources like adaptive equipment through Missouri Assisted Technology, or may need to look into some guardianship opportunities or options. And so even through the stage of adulthood and aging, external resources can be provided, such as transportation through Oats Bus that Kim mentioned, vocational rehab for employment, and benefits through Social Security office. Although connection to resources is really important to start early, support to navigate those options and availability is a key component. And so case management that we've talked about today can assist those families and individuals in really determining what will work best for their specific needs, but also advocate throughout the different life stages, again, from birth to end of life. In addition to possible external resources, through personal experience, I've learned that creating relationships with local schools, we've been able to get more families connected to services, which is great. And by fostering relationships with families, school districts, regional offices, case managers, individuals can feel more supported and connected through all the different life stages, especially the transition stage. In my particular community, I've spent a lot of times in the schools just attending parent meetings, discussing available resources, and walking parents and individuals just through the application process. And the benefit that I've seen of connecting families at an early age allows for support coordinators to assist families and schools with areas of need that may be outside of the brick and mortar that you guys see. But today I wanted to focus more on what case management can provide to school and transition age students. So we'll refer back to our beautiful trajectory over there. And I just wanted to hear from you guys how you think case management can be used to achieve success. How can case management address barriers?
So do you all have connections with case management programs in partnerships with your schools already? Some of you? Yeah? Okay. So our schools, we partner with schools in 8 different counties in our case management program. Whitney and Molly's region covers a much larger region than that. And so building those partnerships, we go in, and I was going to talk about this a little later, so I'm probably jumping the gun, but we go in and we develop programs such as job clubs, work experience programs, leadership academies, and we start programs. We go to back to school nights, resource fairs, all job fairs, all of those opportunities that we can, because we want to be in your doors and we want to build those partnerships early and often, so that we're a familiar face and an accessible resource for you guys. So that's one way that we work with schools to really help build those transition programs. I'll kind of elaborate on those maybe a little bit later.
So another fun tool that we wanted to show you guys is Trello. So I recently discovered Trello, and it's free, which is great. That's always a good additive. And it's interactive, so different people can be on it at one time and shaping the board and changing the board and creating it. And all that takes is just like a simple invite to the other person. So for this presentation, we created just a really simple board to talk about transitions and different goals that students have. So as they get through the transition stage, we've got 3 rows here. So we've got things that are to do, things that are in progress, and things that are completed, or goals that are completed. And those colors up there, I recognize they're probably kind of hard to see, but we broke this out by different goals for after high school. So in green, we've got entering the workforce. In yellow, there's post-secondary education. Orange is going to a tech school. Red is learning skills of independent living. And the purple is for people who just really don't know. So these goals, or these colors, are all tagged to a number of sub-goals. And what we found when we were talking about transition planning is these sub-goals, they're going to be used in many cases in every single path that student has chosen, whether that's employment or they don't know. So some of the things we listed up here is, one, and first and most importantly, are they connected to a support coordinator? Because that's where our focus is today. But other things are, do they have a resume started? Are they volunteering? Are they connected to a Voc Rehab counselor to get them going after school? Are they getting any type of employment support? Or maybe they're just not there yet. Maybe at first they need to work on being that high school graduate. Maybe they need to get a job or do some job readiness skills before they can even get to that path. So from there, I want to show you a little bit more on how this works. So if you click on license, you're going to see that you can pull this up. So you can pull it up, and in the description, you can have your goal. Well, we're going to say in this case, Joe needs a license with a suitable car. So the activities under that is where you would put your efforts. Okay, so Joe has already got his permit. He's been driving with his parents. He took the test and then he failed the test, so we have to rework. So this board, it's a Kanban board or a Kanban board or whatever it is. I have been using it like crazy to just track progress and things that I want to do, things that I need to do. Use it for a team approach to get us all on board. It's been a great asset, and it just came to, I just found it a couple weeks ago. So far, it's a great way to keep individual goals and getting them from that to-do bucket to that doing bucket to that done bucket. But the students that we're supporting, they oftentimes don't even know what that goal is for after high school, right? So they're really relying on their support team to help them to navigate and determine, what can I do? You know, I've been in the school system. I've had an IEP. I don't know if I can live away from my parents. I don't know where I can go or who will be able to accommodate my needs. So what can I do? So the next tool Kim is going to show you could potentially get you one step closer to mapping out what that goal is.
And I'm not near as high-tech and fancy as Molly with her technology tools, but one of the things that I find most valuable when I go to a conference is that I walk away with an actual resource or tool, something that I can put in my hands and I can use. And so Trello, Visio, those are a couple web-based applications. Those that you saw on the screen, we have a very high overview, quick overview of those. But those are both planning resources. What our agency tends to gravitate towards, and we have a few copies of this up here, so we'll share that with you if anybody wants it, but I'm also going to show you how to access it online. Our agency uses Charting the Life course planning tools and framework. And is there anybody in the room that's familiar with Charting the Life course? Oh, yay, I see a couple hands. That's super exciting. We were early adopters of Charting the Life course back in 2014, and so we've worked very closely with the Life Course Nexus out of UMKC and the development of a lot of the tools that are out there. And so it's really exciting when you see some hands fly up and see people actually using it and it working for folks. So Charting the Life course, I just want to give you a little brief overview of that, because I don't want you to walk away from this room thinking, oh, it's another piece of paper she gave me. Charting the Life course is so far from a pretty piece of paper. It is very pretty, but it's much more than that. Charting the Life course, what originally drew us to that was that the core belief is that all people, not just people with disabilities, but all people have the right to live, love, work, play, learn, and pursue their life aspirations in their community. That's exactly what case management's intended to do. So it makes perfect sense that we gravitated towards the Charting the Life course framework and principles. So there's a lot of tools that are available, but all of the tools believe in and are designed to support the all. We touch a small portion of individuals with the work that we do, right? Only serve about 25% of those that are actually eligible and have developmental diagnoses. But what we do can have such a much larger impact. You can have that ripple effect, right? And we can make changes that are going to impact the all. While the tools in the framework were rooted or started with a group of self-advocates and family members who have developmental disabilities, they really were designed to be universal. I sat down with my daughter when she went into 8th grade, And we sat down and we completed tools to figure out what is it, because she was stressed out by all the activities and all the things that happen in middle school, right? So let's sit down and focus. Let's come up with what our goal and our vision is, and let's think about the priority, the activities that are most important to achieve that. So it's universal. It can be used in all situations. Another key principle that lines up with the intent of case management is that individuals exist within the context of a family and a community. And community includes you guys as their school. You're part of their family or part of their community. And while we are advocates for the individuals that we support, and we are a person-centered organization, we recognize the value and the importance in supporting that family. If we want individuals to achieve their good life, which is our ultimate goal, then we know that we have to step in and provide that support to the family as well. We talked already about the life stages and the areas of life, and just emphasizes through Charting the Life Course the importance of that anticipatory guidance piece, that we don't just live in the moment of crisis or in the moment that we're in now, that we plan ahead and we look to those other areas. So the Nexus has developed a whole array of tools. Molly, if you'll just pull up their website real quick, show you how to get to that. It's lifecoursetools.com. And they have a whole library of resources and planning tools. And so you can access that. There's tools that are developed specific for transition planning. There are generic kind of tools that can be utilized. And one of them that we have some handouts for today is a guide around employment. Ooh, 5 minutes. Okay, we're going to rush through this a little bit. The guide around employment includes many of those tools combined into one, and it gives you specific topics around planning for employment. It also gives you history and information on the framework and how to apply it. So there is this nice little tool. The first few pages are lots of resources and information, but when you get down to the back of it, it gives you the actual tool, like let's plan out their vision. Now that we know their vision, let's plan out the integrated supports that are going to help them achieve that vision. And then there's resources broken out by those life areas in the bottom of that document. So there are some copies of that up here, and I apologize I'm rushing through that because there's a couple other things I want to make sure that we touch on. And the next slide is one of those. So, Molly, if you'll bring that up. I mentioned that I didn't mention, but I'm very passionate about Charting the Life Course. So if you ever want to learn more about it, come on over and talk to me sometime or out in the hallway. But the other thing that I'm really passionate about is employment. Employment was instilled at me at a young age as being important. That's where I started my career, was in supported employment. So I really, truly value employment. And I think it's so important to me because I know, and we know based on studies, that employment's linked to a whole array of things. You know, it's linked to independence, self-determination, economic, is linked to our economy, right? So us at the division, or they at the division, and us as a case management agency, and many case management agencies have set employment as an expectation and a priority. The division has an employment first policy, so they explore employment first as an option to meet individuals' needs before other services that might be more restrictive. We as an organization have set up programs with our schools, which I talked a little bit about, but I want to talk about why it's so important. One of my favorite presentations, and I'm sorry I'm rushing through this, so I'm butchering it, but one of my favorite presentations was by Dr. Eric Carter with Vanderbilt University. And they've done a lot of studies around transition age youth, and specifically transition age youth with developmental disabilities. And so their studies, and based on their studies, 98% of youth expect to have a job. We know that expectations matter. We know that employment matters. And so I want to talk to you about this data because I think it's important when you're preparing youth for that transition stage that this is on the table. This is a topic of conversation starting early in their education and setting that expectation early. Students who have high expectations for themselves typically have parents who have higher expectations for them to be successful. Those studies show that students who have parents that expect them to get a job are 5 times more likely to get a job. Simply setting that expectation increases their chance of employment 5 times. But more importantly is you guys in the room. When you guys as educators set that expectation for employment, students are 15 times more likely to obtain employment. 15 times. That's more impactful than their parents at home. And I don't think we all realize sometimes the impact that we can have on individuals. So expectations matter, and building partnerships matter, right? Setting up those programs. Our work experience program is one I really want to touch on, and I'm excited to see there's somebody from Hannibal School District in here. We have partnered with 3 different school districts over the last several years to build work experience programs. These are programs where students get real opportunities, real work skills. They build those at an employer in the community while they're getting school credit. There have been times in the past where we've been able to obtain funding so they get real wages for their real work. The one that is a shining star in our region is the Hannibal BEST program. And if you haven't heard about that, contact Hannibal, talk to Brock Souza, amazing resource for that. But that program, in their first year, they had 4 students who worked at the Hannibal Hospital. Those students went all day. Every program that we work with has been uniquely designed to meet the needs of the school and the students in the community. But this particular one, they send their students all day to the hospital. They have a para from the school that supports them on the job site, along with a job coach from an employment agency. Those students that first year, by having that real opportunity, having those expectations, because they had to go through the interview process, they had to get the immunizations, they had to meet with the director, they had to go through all the training that all the hospital employees go through. They were held to high expectations. The first year of that program, all 4 students walked away with job offers, either from the hospital or from other businesses in the community. We saw a lot of other successes too. Those students got to earn real wages for their job, and that opened up opportunities for them and experiences with their families they've never gotten to have before. Attendance rates, we had a student, Hunter, she had like a 70-some% attendance rate and went to over 90% by participating in this program. Expectations matter, opportunities matter. Can't stress that enough. So reach out to your case management organizations. They may not have these programs, but guess what? They're connected to other agencies like ours who do, and we're happy to talk with them. Schools that are doing these programs, I know Brock is happy to talk with folks about their program to maybe get something set up in your community. So just a reminder that case management is here to help you guys build those partnerships, build those experiences. And just a real quick snapshot is that we support the individual, but we support them within the context of the family and the community, which includes you guys as their school. We support them across all stages of life and all areas of life, and we're supporting them to live their good life through whatever means that we can make happen. So thank you guys very much for your participation. And if you have questions, feel free to come up. We also have some of those handouts for the employment guide. Oh, and Whitney.
So real quick, guys, I'll just touch on how to get individuals connected with services. So we have maps up here, but also on the DMHDD website, it's very easy to pull up the map that shows the different counties the individual resides in, and you can contact that local office. You can encourage the individual and family to go directly into the office. Schools, professionals can also make referrals for families to get services initiated, and we walk through the application process with them. I go to homes to help with applications. I have individuals have meetings, so there's lots of supports to get those services initiated if you have any hesitancy from families. Was there any questions? All right, thank you guys so much.